Hey, what are you doing here? Hello. Hello. Oh, she's biting. She just came on. As soon as we turn on the live stream, she shows up here. Ow. Hey, why do you always have to bite? Why do you bite? I know it's a love bite, but still. You goofy cat. Domino. Domino. Ow. All right. All right. All right. Sit down. Sit down. Calm down. Calm down. Hey, everyone. Good to see you. I know that you might have noticed I've got a cough. So those of you who watched my last video probably know that I've been a little sick. This is the only thing I actually schedule, though, right? Like, you know, if I'm sick, I'm just not going to do a video. But because I've got this scheduled, I was going to do it, and I'm better than I was a few days ago. So we will see how long my voice lasts. That's the only concern, because I'm at the stage now, you know, where I'm, how do you call it? Yeah, extracting all the stuff from my lungs. So, and that can be harsh on the throat. I will see if my voice holds out, then we'll do it longer, and if not, we'll do it shorter. But either way, we are here. But as usual, I don't have any standard openings, so you will. We're going to wait a few minutes, give it about 10-15 minutes until we have all the people here likely to show up by then, and then we will start the interview with our special guest, Lord Matteus. In the meantime, hey, what are you doing, Domino? Hey, calm down there. Shoot, on top of everything, my cat's being a troublemaker.
I think Domino is just slightly older than one of our latest additions to our family, Artemis, and she's exactly the same way. Love bites and all.
Yeah, she's 9-10 months old now. I know she was born on the 10th of November, so I guess I would make her June, July, August. So yeah, 9 months old, I guess. Yeah. Going 9 going on 10. And she is she's very rambunctious. But she's very cute. Oh, Joe the lawyer already sends a super chat for $2. He says, great guest. Just watched one of Lord Matteus's videos today. Well, thank you very much for the super chat, Joe. I really appreciate that. And you guys already probably know, but if you're kind of new to the Pundit Encounter or to my live streams in general, a lot of other live streamers, including people who are perfectly fine people like Diversity and Dragons, have this tendency that they will only read comments if they come with a super chat. I don't do that, right? So anybody who writes an interesting comment, I'm probably going to read it. But with the super chat, I will definitely read it, unless reading it out loud would get me banned from YouTube. So that's the only real benefit. But honestly, the real reason to give a super chat is just to encourage me to keep doing this. Right now, you know, as we're live, there is no this isn't a monetized thing. There's no monetized ads coming up, right? So in exchange for that, if you feel like giving me a tip, you know, some cat toy money for Domino, then we're very grateful for anyone who wants to do that, right? Otherwise, if you don't do that, or in addition to doing that, if you prefer, you can always check out my various products. And on that note, I want to show you, finally, my hardcover version of the Last Vikings has arrived, and it's lovely. I mean, I had the paperback before. It had been sent ahead of time, but yeah, I think that this turned out to be just a really perfect size, and I've got to say that the what's it called? The high quality color version of it from drive-through is it's one of the first times I've looked. I don't know if they've changed something, but usually I get sent by my publisher one of each type of print edition that is made. So if they do like a standard color, soft cover, premium cover, soft cover, standard color hardcover, and premium colored hardcover, I'll get one of each of those, right? So there'll be 4 in total. And every single time I would look at like the 2 hardcovers, I go, I don't know which one is the premium. That looks the same to me, right? But this time I looked and right away I could tell. So I don't know if they've like improved the quality of the premium or dropped the quality of the standard, or if they've just got a new printer doing it or something. But anyways, the Last Vikings is my fastest selling RPG product, and it's still, you know, in the top selling lists of drive-through right now. And I would strongly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. You're bound to like it as long as you like Vikings at all. And it is the most historical, authentic take on Vikings, and specifically Vikings in a specific time period, right? So it's Vikings near the end of the Viking era, right, at the beginning of the 11th century. But it's really good. You're going to really enjoy it. And also, the Old School Companion 3. This has not come out that long ago either. It is the third, final, and biggest compendium of medieval authentic material. There's tons of new magic in here, monsters, secret societies, medieval life, aristocracies. Three entire medieval cities in England are detailed in 3 of the chapters here. A large medieval bestiary. And my very, very favorite thing, which is college adventures, which sounds like, the D&D thing, Fritz Haven or whatever it was. But this isn't that. This is Oxford and Cambridge, what it was like to be in Oxford or Cambridge in the 15th century. And it was fucking insane, right? It was just nuts. And like the whole thing. I mean, you wonder how the hell that ever succeeded. And so it's not so much Harry Potter as it is Animal House with diabolism and alcohol. I'm not sure how else to put it, but it's like I haven't actually run that campaign. I haven't had time to, but at some point I'm going to do that campaign for Lion and Dragon. All right, so. Still got some people coming in. I'd like to give it a little bit more time here. If you guys have questions in advance for Lord Matteus, then please feel free to put them in the chat. Of course, some of them might be similar to the ones I intend to ask, but that's always an interesting thing to check out. We've got 22 people watching now. That's not too bad. And I figure we'll start somewhere in the next 5 or 7 minutes or so. Let me just, meanwhile, get my pipe going here. Should I go for the big guy? Yeah, I'll go for the big guy. All right. Hello to everyone who's coming in. You haven't missed anything if you've arrived just recently. I always give a waiting period of about 10 or 15 minutes before I start the interview because I know people take their time to get into the channel. So all that you've missed is just, banter so far. Okay, that's an interesting question. We'll definitely add that one, Judd. Thank you for wishing me well, Judd. Also, I am already recovering. Right, like I'm feeling a lot better than I was 2 days ago. It's just that I've got all this stuff to expectorate still. Mostly when I chuckle. All right. Hey, what are you doing? What is this? What are you? Why did you attack my arm while I'm trying? Hey, jeez. All right, guys, take advantage of watching Domino while you can here. So I'm gonna be putting her down. You're biting too much. You're too much of a biter. I love you, but you're too much of a biter. She's got this look of hate to me. All right. Well, it is 10 after 9. Sorry, guys, you're going to have to put up with me blowing my nose a bit too. All right. I guess we might as well get started. So today, this is episode 12 of the RPG Pundit Encounter. And as you know, I like to alternate in as much as I can between people who, having as my guests, people who are very well known, right? Like Alexander Macris or, that sort of people. And people who are relatively less known, people who are up and coming, potentially going to be expanding their activities either in the YouTubing or the OSR writing scene, ideally both. And that is the case with my current guest, Lord Matteus. He has a YouTube channel that I believe he was just telling me just before we started, has now gotten to 1,000 subscribers, but only just now, after quite some time. And he's also written a number of RPG products, some of which I wasn't aware of, but I was aware of one of them in particular because I had been sent the book, and it is tied to one of my favorite brands that aren't my own, which is the Wretched verse, and this is Wretched Folklore, which we will be talking about today. It's also some of the content of that book was part of what made me interested in doing the interview. I didn't realize you also are the one who did Together to the Beyond. I hadn't noticed that, which is also the Wretched verse. You guys, those of you guys, okay, if you're a Gen Xer, you're going to know this, and if you're not going to know it, right?
Yeah.
Anybody who remembers watching The Extraterrestrial Invasion, right? This is the Wretched verse version of that.
Yes.
Right? And if you look at the cover, you know right away what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I just love that because, of course, I was at that perfect age to have loved that miniseries when it came out. So okay, that is Lord Matteus. He is both things, both YouTuber and game writer or game product writer. And we're going to begin, as always. I always have the same first question and the same last question to everybody who has been interviewed. And the first question is, Lord Matteus, who has been good to you and who has been bad to you in the hobby?
Oh, man. Well, first, before I
This is
answer
your chance to get it all out there.
I know, right? We're going to get some controversy, I guess. I don't know. Well, first, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I've been a big fan. You're one of the first guys I got into when I discovered the OSR about 5 or 6 years ago. I'm a latecomer, right? So I really appreciate the opportunity. Who's been good to me? Well, you know who I'm going to say? I'm actually going to say the Red Room.
Sure.
They like Miguel, I feel like I could just send him a manuscript and be like, hey, I wrote this thing, what do you think? And without skipping a beat, he'll start formatting it, doing all the layout, and next thing I know, I get something to review. For a while when I was even doing non-Red Room things and I just needed some help with formatting, like when I did like a Chult supplement, it's for some game jam a couple years ago, Miguel just did the layout for me, so Miguel and Sylvia have been great, and I wish the Red Room got way more love, because if anybody deserves, it's them.
For sure.
So I would
agree.
Yeah, so I would say they've been the best. Who has been the worst for me? Oh man.
It doesn't just have to be one person. The question is actually who's been good to you and who's been bad to you, right? So you could name 50 people if you want to, and that'll be fun. But
yeah. Gosh. Well, I will. Anybody been bad? All right. Well, you know what? I will say this, and this is what might drum up some old controversy that you may recall. when I first got on the scene, there was an OSR game jam hyped by a guy named Taylor Lane. And he and I butted heads over a joke that I made, because I like to crack jokes and sometimes they're political. And yeah, he went on a tear on X for a little while, and I thought for sure my budding career was sunk within 24 hours. But I surpassed that. So I would say he was bad, because he got me kicked out of that game jam, because he was one hosting it. So I guess I don't blame him for
that. I'm sorry
to hear water under the bridges.
Taylor's actually a friend of mine, which I know seems like an odd bedfellow, but Taylor is someone who had been a part of like the very left story game crowd, and then like kind of the woke OSR, because they thought they had to be, right, because they thought, oh well, I'd never be accepted by the other OSR, right, by the conservative.
Well, I remember that. And that's why I was like, I felt bad, and that's why I'm like, I don't have any ill will. Like, it was just a joke,
But I mean, I can understand, right? Like that can be, because the problem is there are some people who would not accept someone like Taylor as someone that they'd want to interact with, right? So I'm sure that it could be pretty hard in that sort of situation to know whether the person who's making the joke was just kind of joking around, or if they were, if they were one of these bro SR guys or something that was like trying to sink them, So it caused a lot of paranoia, right? And then Taylor still has had lots of problems being able to relate with the OSR because of that, right? Because there is, because the conservative streak in the OSR is there, and it's real, and it's something you have to cope with, right? If you're particularly if you're one of those who, like, I don't know, Kelsey Dion gets a free pass, right? Apparently, right? But Taylor Lane doesn't, unfortunately. But okay, that's a good example. So what about the bro SR? What do you think of them?
I was anticipating this question, and like a good, I guess, attorney, I think I have a good answer for you. It depends on what you mean. I think there's two questions we can ask ourselves when we talk about the bro SR and how we feel about them. Like, are we going to talk about their method and their game style, or are we going to talk about how they present it, their pedagogy, right? And I have two different answers for either question. Which one would you like to hear first?
Well, let's talk about, I guess, the harder one first, which is their methods, right? Their practices, because one would think at first glance to say, well, no, this is really solid because they're trying to be like rules as written, exactly how Gary Gygax did and all this. And then it turns out that's all a bullshit house of cards too. It's nonsense that their leader had come up with and then claimed was the way Gary Gygax did things, when Gary Gygax never did anything of the sort.
Yes, I remember those debates actually, because that was around the time I first I really started jumping. I jumped on Twitter before it became X, and I saw these guys posting weird, wrestling memes and talking about one-to-one time. And, just as a quick aside, that's when I really started liking this like online OSR and OSR adjacent conversations. Cause I'm like, all these things that I was thinking about, because I didn't know there was anything going on online for a long time. I was like, other people are thinking about it, right? So I thought that was cool, but I really didn't know what the hell they were doing. I had a similar response when I first saw Avenger just shouting Chult all the time. I'm like, what the hell is Chult? I remember when they first came out, it was this is what Gary Gygax was doing, and then I remember the arguments with you in the debates, and then eventually it was proven it's like no, that really wasn't. And then the goalpost shifted, right? And it's like, well, you can play it this way.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of where I'm at with like the OSR and what I truly love about the OSR is like the experimentation and sort of the things you can do with.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the irony of this. If the Bro SR had just said, no, well, we're going to try to do this thing where we're going to follow every rule in the AD&D handbook,
right?
And they just said that, I wouldn't be able to criticize them at all. I'd say, yeah, okay, that you're entitled to do that. I mean, it might be crazy, but you can try, right?
Right. Yeah.
The problem was they said, no, this is the only way to run D&D, and it's the way that Gary Gygax did it, right? And both of those things are wrong.
Yeah. Oh, no, I completely agree. And I think if you watch, all you have to do is watch, like, Secrets of Blackmore to see that everything that was going on at that time was just like this cauldron and this, like, environment of experimentation, and they were throwing anything and everything into this mix because they were having fun. In fact, well, I think it was last month you interviewed Matthew Tapp, Barrows and Borderlands, and we just had him on my show about a week or so ago. Yeah, and just talking to him, and he's like, yeah, if I have like a complex lock in my dungeon, instead of making my players make an open locks check, we pull out a board game and they solve the lock by playing this particular board game. I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, that's genius, because that's like so immersive and you're doing like this different thing. And so I think there is some truth to the sort of anti-OSR criticism, because they're not promoting, at least initially they weren't promoting very creative things. But I still follow those guys on X, and they're starting to branch out. So some of them, I think they're becoming a bit more moderate. And that's where I go into pedagogy, like the weak sauce, calling people weak sauce, or PDF peddler, or some of these other names. Like, it's like, dude, like, literally studies have been done for decades. This is not how you teach anybody how to do anything. Like, you'd be drummed out of,
Well, so except if what you want to have is an intentionally exclusive group, right? Because then that is exactly the way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it depends on whether you're trying to go and convert all the nations, which they might be claiming they're trying to do, but I don't think they are. Or whether you want, or Jeffro wanted, to have a small group of fiercely loyal people, right? And if you want that, that's where you have to pull these kind of like Westboro Baptist Church tactics of saying everybody else is horrible, you're going to hell, and we're the only ones that know the truth, right?
Right.
And you either do it our way or you die, right? That sort of thing. Right. That is the way you get an incredibly loyal, though very small group, which is, I think, what Jeffro always tried to do.
Yeah. And I think they're, I mean, they've pivoted over the years, because I've been like I said, I've watched them. Hell, I played in the ill-fated Broriental Adventures game from like a year or so ago. So I've been watching them and just paying, and they've pivoted, so now they're, their whole thing now is, they're just trying to create like a clubhouse, and clubhouses are, going to have exclusive elements, right? They're going to be, so it is what it is. If that's the way they want to be, fine. But, I think the OSR is so much broader, and I'd rather have
they're literally anti-OSR. Right? They're always trying to look for like the D&D that never existed, right? And they always get it wrong. Like now they went into the thing with Braunsteins, what they're calling Braunsteins, that are nothing. Like they're the Secrets of Blackmore people told us, right? This is nothing like what the Braunsteins were like this, and they're doing it this other completely different way. What they're doing is closer to a West Marches campaign or something. But anyway. Before we continue, I wanted to point out a question here from Judd Goswick. He says, when is Raji going to let you write an official adventure for Lamentations of the Flame Princess?
Well, he already has. It's called A Gift for All of Norway. You can get it on Drive-Thru-RPG. It's the only product I have on Drive-Thru, because all my Red Room products have been taken down because of that controversy. But I think it's $4.99 for the PDF, and there may be a few more physical copies at the US store. It's a little dungeon adventure. Basically, you are traveling through a mountain range that is actually the sleeping Jotun Hrungnir, and he's starting to wake up. So you're now facing off with his how shall we say, his bodily functions that are trying to expel the invaders. So it was fun. It was a weird thing that Raji did. He had like this, he's just like, whoever wanted to do this thing that I didn't pick, he was like making like a weird Crusher adventure for his catalog that he does. And whoever didn't pick, just send me something. You got 10 days. So in 10 days, I wrote this, and he edited it and got someone to do the maps and the image, the art, and boom, it was made. So I've been meditating on a couple other ideas. For me, Lamentations, and people who do know me know that I'm a huge Lamentations fan. To me, what Raji does is like kind of a step up of your average game. So I want to make sure if I have an idea, it's something that Raji's going to be like, yeah, that fits the vibe, that fits what I'm trying to do. And he
does have a very particular vibe.
Yeah. So the closest I got from
it led him, sorry, go on.
I was just saying the closest I got was I sent him an idea about a Sweet 16 party that went afoul when some crazy necromancer did like a Event Horizon kind of thing to everyone in attendance. He's like, well, that's cute. And that's all I heard from him. So I'm still working on it. but this is available.
There you go. Yeah, I was going to say his very particular views on things meant that he didn't publish Dark Albion, right? I had suggested it to him, before Dominic Cruzet, and he was like, well, I don't think so, because he just did this thing. It seems like not edgy enough, I guess was the answer, right? So he missed out on that. Of course, was what set me off in a whole other direction. Otherwise, I might have been, I might have ended up publishing everything with him,
Right. Yeah.
But Raji, he half of the stuff he publishes, I mean, he always publishes stuff that is unusual, and that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
But half of the stuff is like basically unusual to the point that most people will not find it of utility. And then the other half is split between stuff that is actually, it's playable, but it's got usually a couple of interesting little twists. And then the other half, or the other quarter rather, is just gold, right? It's like fantastic. So it's a bit hit and miss with him every time, but that kind of works out for him anyways, because different people have different aesthetic tastes also, which is the other thing, is this huge spectrum of just how sick his books are, right? Like from practically a normal D&D adventure to like something that you probably could get into trouble bringing through an airport, like that's
yeah. Well, I liken Lamentations of the Flame Princess to like a record label, like a dark metal, heavy metal record label. Every band is going to have their own little take, right? Their own little thing. And so you got everything from Kelvin Green's art and his quirky writing to Zach S, right? So, and everybody in between. But I like, and this is kind of going back to the OSR, like I like the unusual, not necessarily the weird and the horrific, though that is something I do like. I like interesting different things. That's why I have a lot of your Dark Albion, Sword and Caravan, the Medieval Authentic is just so different and weird to me. I was like, yeah, let's do it.
That's the thing, right? Like in the early period of the OSR, what you had was mostly people doing dungeons, and that's cool. But I mean, 80% of dungeons are going to be kind of imitative of other dungeons, right? Like it's hard to get somebody like a Greg Gillespie that can make a dungeon that will just blow your mind, right? And then they were doing like adventures that were kind of callbacks to old D&D adventures, and there's only so much you can do of that sort of thing, right? And generic fantasy world number 876 or something,
right?
Like that,
exactly.
That's really bad, right? But then when you've got stuff like Wretched, like Lamentations, the Red Room, and thankfully my stuff also, right? That take the OSR in other directions that's where you get, that's why the OSR is the most successful design movement in RPG history.
I would agree.
All
And
right.
that's one of the things that drew me to it once I realized, like, I'm like, wow, there's people who think this way. I honestly was in like this desert for a very long time. I thought it was always going to be just killing goblins for gold. You know what I mean? And so there's so much more.
So we got about 34 people watching right now. And I'm guessing that quite a few of these people already know you, but it's likely that there's going to be quite a few people that don't, because you do have a YouTube channel, you have made some books, but it'd be fair to say you're not hugely well known yet. So are you a YouTuber first or a game writer first? Because I notice there's a difference between those two, right?
Yeah. I kind of started doing it at the same time. I just took a look at, honestly, because there's not like a manual you can go to. It's and I wasn't at during the G Plus days where all you guys were, you know, chit chatting, arguing,
going crazy. Yeah, the Wild West.
Yeah.
The good old days.
So but I started watching you. I started watching Venger. I started watching Grim Jim. I started seeing all these guys, and I had ideas. It's kind of like a bucket list. I'm like, I'm going to try to publish something. So, but I did see that like a YouTube channel can help with marketing. So I kind of did it at the same time, but also, like, when I got into the OSR, it was right when Lamentations was dealing with a lot of its controversy. And I was like, I love this company and it's about to go under. Like, I want to see what I can do to help. So that's why, like, my early videos were just nothing but Lamentations, right? I think a more salient question is, like, what do I consider myself first? And that would be, I'd like to be considered an author. I'd like to be considered someone who is a designer or writer. I don't need to be the next, like, pundit or Zackass or whatever, but I just like, hey, he writes competent stuff. He writes fun things. So that would be great to have that, and then the YouTube channel is kind of secondary. But
okay,
I gotta say,
that was what I was getting at, actually, was that, like, there are people who are just YouTubers and people who are just game writers, and then there's people who are doing both, but are very clearly either they were YouTube influencers first and they put out a product as merch, or they're actually people who want to make games, and the YouTube is a way to be able to communicate with the audience, right? And those are two very different groups of people.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I figured that was going to be your answer, but I thought I'd see what, So tell us about your YouTube channel. You just hit 1,000 subscribers, you told me, and let the audience know what kind of videos you post there.
Okay, well, I'm actually, this past 6 months, I've been going through a bit of a change at the YouTube channel. Reading the tea leaves. So, like, the first couple of years, it was a lot of just actual plays, and then I would talk about the games I've actually played, because there were so many YouTubers who were just like, I couldn't tell if they played the game or not, or if they got paid to do the review. I wanted to have street cred, so I'm like, I'm going to record myself playing these games, and I'm going to talk about them. So I ran a 3-year Lamentations game using Temple of Elemental Evil on my channel, for example. Obviously actual plays are not very popular. So I had very, very slow growth. Well, I have been finding people are like, oh yeah, I really like your game, and I'm like, really? Oh, okay. Well, it's just a bunch of reviews.
My DCC campaign, right? World of the Last Sun. I don't post it on this channel. Bill the Elf, who is one of my players, posted on his own channel. That's all it is. It's the audios of our sessions, right? And I don't know. I think he gets double-digit views at most in any thing he puts. But there's like that small group of people that are just fanatics about it, to the point that they will come on to my channel and post something about one of the characters. Oh, Sammy pissed me off this last time. You should do something about that, right? Stuff like that, right? Or when's Bill the Elf coming back? This whole sort of thing, right? So there will be some people who'll get caught into it, right? But the secret is that all the really successful live gaming things, or live recordings of RPG play are actually not that. They're improv acting.
Oh yeah, and highly produced, and I actually for a while was, happily wearing the anti-Matt Mercer hat. Like when you come to my show, by my game, you're gonna hear a bunch of friends literally joking and laughing and having a good old time, and rolling dice and getting maimed and murdered in horrible ways, laughing it off and rolling up a new character, So but yeah, in the last 6 months, though, like just reading the tea leaves and the way things are moving and changing in the industry, I'm like, I think I should start doing like a live stream. So an old friend of mine who I used to do a podcast with during the pandemic, we got talking. So we started the second watch in January of this year. And I think that I went from like 800 subscribers to 1,000 in about 4 months, which was the most growth I've had like in the 3 years I've been doing this. I think maybe it's 4 now.
That's really curious, because obviously there are some people who really prospered out of that live stream format, right? And I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or whatever, right? But my live streams are rarely my top viewed videos, right? My live streams tend to be for people who are already following me, who are like the hardcore crowd, like the people we got here, right? That really like to take these deep dives, right? And yeah, I mean, but I do it anyways because I enjoy this, and I like the opportunity, especially now with the RPGPundit Encounter. Now that inappropriate characters is done, at least for me. I know that they're doing it with other people now, but that I like the opportunity to be able to do this kind of one-on-one long form interview, but yeah, live streaming for some people can be very successful. I guess it depends how good you are at producing it, and I'm shit at producing anything. So.
Mine is so lo-fi. I mean, I use some janky AI videos I created so you see a guy sleeping, and then someone's like second watch, and he wakes up, and it's just some like stupid little intro I made. I don't
know if you saw the last one when I had Double D here, right? And of course, he's a master at live streaming.
Oh yeah.
And while we were on, he was there, and he would be like, "Oh, hang on, let me show you something." Right? He does something, and suddenly this like image appears of like he wanted to show the cover of, I think it was the cover of Daggerheart or one of these things, like one of these things he wanted to criticize. And suddenly it like shows up there, and I'm like, how the hell did he do? I don't know how to do that on StreamYard.
Yeah.
I'm just hopeless for that. So but I've always been the lo-fi sort of guy, right? Which is really, I hear other people saying, no, like if you want to really make it as a YouTuber, you have to learn how to do this video editing and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, I just press play, and whatever shows up, that's what it's going to be, and it's been working for me for years.
Yeah, well, it's funny stories. Like my co-host Gary, he's a professional musician, and so that's how he made a living for like 30 years. So he's very much concerned about all that stuff. And I go, God, I'm like, Gary, RPGPundit and Vendor, like literally just turn on a camera and start talking. Like it's fine, we're doing okay, But what I found with this live stream is like I think it's given me a little bit more cred and I'm now interacting with more people in the industry. So I've made the decision to actually bifurcate what I'm doing and with my, I guess, videos. So YouTube is going to be dedicated to the live stream and like review videos of like game books and stuff. But I have a Rumble channel called Gaming with Lord Matteus. And that's where I'm going to put the actual plays. And so if anybody's on Rumble, I would love it if you gave me a follow there. Because that channel is like, Rumble is what it is. But that's where I'm going to start starting like this month. Because I have a game. I'm going to start running a Wretched game in about a month. And that'll be an actual play. So
what's your Rumble channel name? Is it just Lord Matteus?
Gaming with Lord Matteus. Yeah.
Gaming with Lord Matteus. There you go. If you're on Rumble, check that out. I think it's in particular when it comes to like actual play stuff, that is where it makes a lot of sense to bifurcate that away from the main channel, because those are two very different things, right? Like let's say even if you manage to do like, whether it's successful, high produced or whatever, the people that watch actual plays are usually people that are not necessarily going to be interested in watching a video about DMing skills or something, for whatever reason, it just turns out that way. So
Yeah.
that one makes, like, because I do, political in hobby rants, right? I do reviews, and I do kind of DM and general like game design instructions, right? And all three of those are on my channel, and that's fine. But I wouldn't put, for example, the DCC stuff on my channel, right? The World of the Last Sun actual play stuff, because, well, first of all, I'd be worried I get demonetized, right? But also because sometimes we get pretty weird in those games. But also because I know it wouldn't be a draw, right? And unfortunately, part of what YouTube does is that if some of your videos aren't doing well, right, that hurts the algorithm for the likelihood people are going to see.
Oh yeah, and that's exactly one of the reasons why I've decided to do that. Like within the past month, I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, I think this is what I need to do. And people who've been following me know that I'm on a bit of a vacation right now. I just came back from a weekend trip with some friends. I have tomorrow off. In fact, tomorrow is the day I'm going to be doing a lot of this stuff. So a lot of the actual plays will be taken down from YouTube, but they'll be on Rumble. Moving forward, YouTube, Lord Matteus YouTube channel will be the second watch Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then the occasional, every other week review video or DM advice video. So
Good stuff. All right, so let's talk about what you have written so far, which I ended up looking at your published tomes and apocrypha, and I realized you've written much more than I was aware of. So what was the first thing that you did anyway?
The first thing actually you can't find because I took it down during the OGL debacle. I wrote a 5e adventure called A Sonata for the Silver Queen. It was sort of like a Ravenlofty kind of thing. I'm probably going to rewrite it and make it more OSR because I would prefer to play it that way anyway. But that was the very first thing I wrote. And then I just started doing game jam stuff. Something I was getting involved in a lot was, whenever some contest, like you have 30 days to write a thing with 8 pages. Yeah. I mean, what a great, you got to set parameters, just crank something out and see what people say about it. And so I would experiment, see what people were saying, where I could improve, that sort of thing. So it's been kind of, it's been, I don't want to say eye-opening, but informative, but I wrote something, my OSR Goblin was like one of the first things I think I put on itch.io.
Yeah, the Goblin OSR class. Yeah.
Yeah, that was inspired by Lamentations and something I had been doing in a 5e game years ago. So that's like this purely chaotic class. So like the idea, they're kind of inspired by it's not a goblin like a standard D&D goblin. It's more like Fae, more inspired by the movie Labyrinth. So as your goblin gains levels, you roll randomly on a D6 chart to see what kind of weird mutation you get, or a chaotic manifestation, as I called it. And then you just have like this weird little creature that's like your little OSR goblin, So that was a kind of a hit for a little while among the Lamentations crew. One guy in particular he's no longer doing his YouTube channel, but he like private messaged me. I felt kind of proud. I'm like, oh shit, this guy actually liked it, So I'm actually pretty proud of that one. I think it's a fun class, and you can get that for free. People have been like paying me like $2 for it, but you don't, seriously, I don't want your money. Just take it, it's meant for fun, but that was one of the first things like I wrote. And then the larger, more long form one was Midnight Prairie, which I have right there. Basic Expert had a game called Cow Punchers. I freaking loved it. I thought it was such a cool, like, simple system, but it was supposed to be just cowboy stuff, right? And I'm like, well, were you planning on doing anything like Weird West or anything like that with it? And he's like, not really. And I'm like, do you mind if I do something? And he's like, sure. So the very first thing I actually like wrote and tried to, do all the layout myself. I had some help from Miguel, was that. And that was a kind of a learning experience as well, in terms of like how to structure and whatnot. But when I wrote that, Miguel and Sylvia read it because, they were, helping me with the format. And they're like, would you mind writing something for our Wretched Country game? And I said, sure. And that's where Wretched Folklore came to be, the first edition, which is behind me. The second edition is now available. And that was published mid-January, 2 years ago, I think it was. And then 3 weeks later, the Red Room got banned from drive-through. So a lot of my Red Room stuff has just been kind of languishing in the void, sadly. But I don't know. I'll keep writing for them because I like the Red Room stuff, and that's kind of what drives me. I write what I write because I want to. I'm not trying.
When you say languishing in the void, you mean that it's not available, or that it's just not selling?
It's no one knows where it is, and Lulu, because you can get a physical copy on Lulu. But no one goes to Lulu for physical copies, it's just, it is what it is. Like, I was on my way to becoming a copper seller, right? And then they got but I'm very proud of Wretched Folklore. Like, I really am proud of that book. I really,
it's a real shame also that they that their store, they're going to have to like shut it down basically because of the Portuguese tax laws, basically killing all of their potential for profit with it. Like, it's just terrible. I'm quite miffed about that, because at the end of the year, it means that's probably going to be the end of. Well, I mean, I don't know. I could keep doing the Pundit Files and drive through, but I made the Pundit Files for the Red Room store specifically to help out the Red Room store and to get some more traffic going there and everything. And it's been great for me. Like, I mean, they've been selling quite well, but now that's coming to an end fairly soon. But anyway, so Wretched Folklore, they sent me, or I don't remember if it was you who sent it to me, or if it was Mel who sent it.
Yeah, I sent it to you because I was like, what? Like I said, I don't mean this in an Eddie Haskell sort of way. I'm not trying to kiss your butt or anything, but I was kind of inspired by the way you approach the OSR and your medieval authentic. I did some research. I did some research in the folklore of the Native Americans, and while it wasn't hardcore research, I did everything was, very proud.
I haven't finished reading this yet, but what I've seen of it gives me a pretty clear indication that you have been doing some actual research, and so I find it's pretty interesting. But I'm going to eventually not eventually, it's next on the list, right? The next review I do reviews usually when it's a slow news week, right? So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it is going to happen fairly soon. So I'm going to end up doing a review video of this, but why don't you tell the audience what you want to say about it and what it has? It's obviously meant for the Wretched system, but that means it could be used in any OSR game. It's specifically, I assume, for Wretched Country, which is the Wild West version of the Wretched verse, and that's I liked that book a lot.
Yeah, so when I got introduced to the Wretched RPG in the Red Room, what struck me was rather than necessarily reference what a lot of people reference, from the appendix and those pulp authors, they were referencing all these movies, whether, the Di Giallo, Dario Argento, to like classic Western, all this stuff. And I was just like, wow, they're, and you can tell that it's really shaped how they approach the game. I actually worked with them on moving Wretched RPG from pure OGL to something that's non-OGL, and I just thought it was really cool. Again, it's just another example of like how the OSR is such an great experimental game design movement, right? So I read Wretched Country, and I was like, well, this is cool, but I wanted more in the bestiary. And like I said, when I wrote Midnight Prairie, Miguel and Silver are like, this is kind of what we need for Wretched Country. Would you mind doing something for us? So, and like taking a kind of a cue from Lion and Dragon, I'm like, I'm going to do some research. I'm like, really like look into some of this stuff. And it took me down some really interesting, I guess, paths. Like I was just gonna, my original plan was to just kind of focus more on movies and stuff, and then just sort of fill in the blanks with like real history. But then I started reading things about like Prairie Madness, and like the writings from the 1800s from the prairie were just like really dark and depressing, and there was like all this isolation and loneliness. And I stumbled upon this one study that was positing that the lack of sound contributed to a lot of the madness, because a simple chicken clucking would be amplified because there's no other background noise like you would have on the East Coast with the wind whistling through the trees, horse and buggies going down the street, people talking. No, you're out in the middle of this lonely prairie and it's just nothing but the wind, and then I got me thinking of like that one movie, Once Upon a Time in the West, where you're just like that opening sequence. There was like no conversation, just sound. And I'm like, yeah, so I have to put Prairie Madness. So I have rules for Prairie Madness in here. And then I found a couple websites and a few books that talked about Native American like monsters and folklore. And I just tried to translate them into like, like more than just the Wendigo. Like I go into like the Red Woman, or one of my personal favorites is Deer Woman. She transforms into a deer, and she's incredibly beautiful, and she's lascivious. She incites lasciviousness in men and drives them into their deaths. But women of the tribes would, like not necessarily make sacrifices, but do dances and invoke her for fertility's sake. So all kinds of stuff like that. And then obviously I had to put Kung Fu, like expand a little bit of their Kung Fu because of the television show. But I started looking into some other, like a good example of me like taking a movie and then looking into the history was like Tombstone. They mentioned spiritualism. So I started doing some reading on spiritualism, and like these people honestly thought they could raise people from the dead and all this stuff. I'm like, what an interesting psychic class this would make. So the spiritualist class is basically, all the powers are derived from their very beliefs, from what I was reading in various sources. So I had that, and then some steampunk rules I incorporated. What else? And then I just kind of expanded on like weather and rules for traveling across the plains, because I sort of feel like that needs to be challenging. To really have like a more authentic experience in the Western Prairie during that time. But yeah, this was, some people think of the Weird West as cowboys riding dinosaurs, shooting fireballs from their 6-shooters. If that's what you want, that's fine. But that's not what I was going for with this. I wanted something that was tied to reality, tied to real history. So when the weirdness and the monsters showed up, it pops. It's very jarring, like any good horror would be, and I wanted to have like an authentic feel. So that's what Wretched Folklore really ends up being, something to add to your Western games to make it fantasy, but without going overboard.
Yeah. Spiritualism was absolutely huge in the later half of the 19th century. And there was definitely, that was going on all over the place in America, obviously in Europe as well. And the interesting thing is that it was a kind of steampunk mysticism, right? Because it was at the same time that people were discovering all these things about like electricity, and that they had these theories about the phlogiston or whatever, right? Like the luminous ether and all that, and they thought, well, then that must be where like spirits are, and so like they were trying to give this. It was the first time really that they tried to apply a scientific basis to an occult concept, right? Which is something that later on people kept trying to do, right up to like Deepak Chopra still does that shit, right? Like, where he's like, oh yeah, the ability to meditate is connected to the quantum state, it's just nonsense. But it was that was like they really thought it could be, right? Because I mean, there's so little that they knew about the some of these new discoveries that were coming in, right? And so in some ways it was very new, and in some ways it was very old, right? Like the necromancer who can summon the spirits of the dead is something that is probably like one of the earliest forms of spiritual practice that exists in human society. But yeah, and I think a lot of people miss that if you're like trying to do something tied to the Wild West or something. And you're right that they go with this, oh, there's zombies or something like or whatever, right? Like a little bit of research lets you do stuff that ends up being much weirder than what modern day writers have been able to come up with without paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you working on anything new now that you haven't come out with yet?
Well, I actually have a bunch of things. I run into this issue where I get a little writer's block, but I want to keep working, so I'll like jump to a different project. I'm working on a face rip clone, Marvel superheroes clone. That's kind of more inspired by Saturday morning cartoons. I'm working on a follow-up to a Red Room adventure. This is called Isle of the Sapphire God. It's called Temple of the Coruscating Eye, and it's sort of like they're not really a trilogy, this thing I'm working on, but they kind of are. But basically, Isle of the Sapphire God is like this island is discovered in the middle of Indian Ocean with this weird alien sapphire, and these mutant cannibals worship it. And then the temple takes place in the mid-20s. Temple of the Coruscating Eye takes place in the mid-30s, where it's more like Raiders of the Lost Ark inspired. And basically, I'm allowing this might get me in a little bit of trouble, but the players are going to be able to pick from 4 factions to team up with. And it being Wretched, I'm including the bad guys from World War II. If you could work for them, if you really want to, but they're looking for a Cambridge professor that went missing in the Congo, and he went kind of crazy after studying something, and that's going to be like an international race from like London to the Congo to like a short dungeon crawl to a final confrontation. And then part 3 right now is just more conceptual, but I'm calling it the horror from Bunker 316. That takes place in the 40s, and that's where the bad guys of WW2 have both the Coruscating Eye and the Sapphire God, and they're like creating mutant soldiers, and you, the wretched heroes, are like going to be like Doom style shooting your way through a freaking dungeon to try to stop them from doing what they're doing, and maybe potentially save the world. But that's what I'm those things right now. I also have I'm kind of consolidating some Shadow Dark module or game jam stuff that I wrote. I'm hoping to get that done next month in time for Halloween, because they're all horror concepts, or excuse me, adventures. Those were game jams. I had like 6 to 7 pages to write. A lot of stuff hit the cutting room floor, and I that I really liked. So now I'm just kind of expanding on them. So that'll be like I don't know, it's looking to be like 100-page adventure anthology, kind of like the Creep Show movies, or Twilight Zone, or VHS, if you've ever seen those movies. That might become like an annual thing, because I think Shadow Dark lends itself to horror gaming, but it's the way Kelsey presents it, it's just like D&D, kind of scary. But I'm like, if you just take it one notch further, I think you could turn Shadow Dark into like kind of like a good horror game. And I think that's what I'm going to do when and if I write for Shadow Dark. I'm just going to be the horror guy, the Lamentations of the Shadow Dark. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, that's good. All right, so I'm going to take a little pause here to for the sake of the number of people who have come in later. I am interviewing Lord Matteus, and he's been telling us about some of the products that he's made so far, and about his YouTube channel. Be sure to check him out. That's the link to the YouTube channel is in the description of the live stream, so you could check it out and subscribe if you think he's got interesting videos. And what was I going to say? Jeez, now I've lost my train of thought. I coughed it right out of myself. So yeah, so just to let you guys know, as usual, my the live stream is not monetized while we're live. So anyone who wants to give a super chat is very welcome to do so. I will still, highlight certain comments from people that don't do super chats. I'm not one of those guys that only points out super chats. But if you want to, get some cat toy money for Domino, then feel free to donate. And I still got quite a few things to talk about, though. Is there anything else before we continue? Because I'm going to go off into other more kind of general subjects. But is there anything else you want to tell us about what you're doing or what you've written or anything along those lines?
Yeah, actually, just to highlight Together to the Beyond, that was a Christmas game jam that the Red Room did last year, and that's like sort of the unofficial conclusion of like that trilogy. I just kind of was like, well, this is what's going to happen. Eventually, these weird Cthulhu-esque visitors are going to show up. So, and that was sort of like I was on like a kick where I was watching all the old V movie or shows, and even rewatched like the reboot. I don't know if you saw that one with Marina Baccarin as like the lead alien chick. The first season was really good. Second season was awful, and then it got canceled. You might actually get a kick out of it, Pundit, if you haven't seen it, because there's this one scene, because it was during the Obama era. Anna, the lead alien, is talking to this main character journalist, and she's like, "Oh, through our health facilities, we'll be able to cure cancer and prolong your lives, and we're going to give it to you for free." And the journalist is like, "You mean you're going to give us universal health care?" I started chuckling when he said that, because I'm like, that's how they're going to get it. That's how they're going to get us, universal health care. But anyway, yeah. So I was inspired by those shows to do like a Red Room alien invasion scenario. That goes a little bit beyond, but yeah, I really like that one too. $3.50 at itch.io, my page there. Go check it out. You mean
$3.50?
$3.50. Yeah.
That's the same price that you can get a Pundit Files for. Just $3.50. So there you go. If you've got $3.50, you can go and pick up that product. And if you've got another $3.50, you can check out the latest issue of the Pundit Files. The current latest issue is, I think, still Space Opera Locations 2. And the one before that, if you haven't checked it out, you really should. It's called The Dungeon of Doom, which was a kind of a collaboration between myself and Zoran Peterson, who is the grandson of Sandy Peterson, creator of Call of Cthulhu. And it's a very Gonzo style dungeon that Zoran drew and then I populated, and it's really fantastic. So yeah, check out the Red Room store where you can get all of these great products. They're well worth taking a look at. There's a lot of great stuff on there that you're going to find for OSR material, and yeah, $3.50. That's what we need. So. Let's start talking about some things that have been topical. One of the big topics that has come up this week has to do with Daggerheart, or as some YouTubers call it, Daggerheart. Apparently, Daggerheart is so bad that Critical Role isn't using it in their new season. Now, some people have speculated that Wizards of the Coast has paid off Critical Role to get them to use 2024 D&D because they're desperate or something like that. There's no real evidence of that. We don't know that for sure. And it is, I guess it's within the realm of possibility, but I kind of have my doubts. I don't know.
I think, who was it?
Several people have speculated.
Yeah, I think I saw that video. I don't watch a lot of those, but it popped up. And previously on X, I was like, I mentioned, if they don't use Daggerheart for their next season, that's going to speak volumes. And then I think earlier this week, right before I left on vacation, I saw that news and I was just like, called it, on X. And I think even if it's true, that just underscores, I just think that underscores how bad it is, because it means because number one, Critical Role is huge, right? Like they are making money doing what they're doing, and they've made so much money they can do their own production and all this other stuff, right? Daggerheart, I guess, sold well enough where people are talking about it still, right? But it just tells me that if they're willing to take someone else's money to keep playing their game, it just means they lack that much confidence in their own product. You know what I mean?
Well,
even if it's true.
Yeah, I've done a few videos about Daggerheart, and it's very clear that as a system, it's really clunky, right? And I mean, everybody who's looked at it from the OSR point of view has seen that instantly, right? Double D did the same thing.
Yeah,
and it is, what I found out. I mentioned this in the last live stream that I did with Double D, that I had a guy who owns a gaming store still. Incredibly, there's still some around. He said at first, when Daggerheart first came out, and of course, yeah, it did really well in the Kickstarter and everything, because of course the CR fans are going to buy it, right?
Yeah,
they're buying it sight unseen. And he said, well, you might be wrong, Pundit, because when from the moment Daggerheart went live, we've got like 8 gaming groups in my store that are going to run it. And I said, well, okay, well, let's see, keep me informed, let me know how that's going, right? And then like a month later, he gets in touch with me and he says, you know what, every single one of those campaigns is folded. So and it's because the game is unwieldy, and it tends to theater kid drama, and it isn't going to give the same experience for these people who, most of the people who are going to play it are fans of Critical Role. It's not going to look like Critical Role, it's going to look like some thing, right? It's a badly designed game. So I think that it just proves that they made Daggerheart as merch. I think I'm pretty certain that their last season or two of Critical Role has been doing less well than the first ones, right? They're dropping in popularity. And so I think they decided they wanted to have like a fantasy game that they could sell while the selling was still good, but I don't think that they have any confidence in it.
Yeah. And that seems to be kind of like when we were talking, the very first question you asked me, like they started off, that was their thing, and then they're seeing their views drop. Hey, let's throw out some merch. Let's throw something out there to get an injection of cash. And I think even with the change up with the new, whatever his name is, who's going to be DMing now,
Brandon Lee Mulligan.
Yeah. I don't, from Dimension 20, I guess it's the show he came from. I just think that is also more, I think that was more of a business decision and less of a, hey, this ought to be fun decision. Like a normal group would do, right? A normal gaming group would be like, hey man, you want to try DMing, right? And they're like, yeah, that'd be fun. Let's do that. No. I think this was a business decision. They're like, everyone's like, what would happen if Matt Mercer was a player?
It's all prefab. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like the funny thing is I saw the video that they did introducing the new season, right? And it's first of all, this guy Mulligan, he's an insufferable prick, right? You can tell right away. It's going to be horrifying. But it's crazy. And then somebody interviewed Matt Mercer, and they said, well, and he then explained. He said, well, we want every campaign that we're going to do, we want it to be just right, and so we had the options of which system to use, and we decided that it was better to use D&D 24. And that's like a huge admission, right? Because
right, yeah.
Why would you make a game for your fans and then say, well, but that's not actually a good game to run a Critical Role campaign with, right? Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's just crazy. So yeah, at this point, it's all about, I think, them milking this as much as they can, because they realize, just like any TV show, right, that they're going to have a jump the shark moment, and they know it's coming, right? It's already like they're already on the decline, and they're trying to milk this for all it's worth before they all move on to other things, right? Like, because remember, all of these guys for Critical Role were mostly voice actors, and they're now going to like branch off into other projects, trying to like keep using that fame from Critical Role to do other things for their careers, right?
Yeah.
But there we are. Yeah, it's just funny. Yeah. The way
I also
worked out.
Yeah, and I haven't, because I've been out of the loop this past couple of days, but I think I saw the cast is pretty big, because they're allegedly going to try to do it Wes March's style.
That's just such bullshit.
I know.
It's
well, yes.
He's scripted, and that is not a Wes March's game.
Yes. Well, that's the thing too, and kind of goes down to where I think it's less about fun. It's just all the more. This is not a real gaming. A real game. They know Wes March's is a buzzword, you know.
Yeah.
They know it's been in everyone's like, ear for the past like 6 months to a year now, because everyone's been talking about it again. So like, hey, we're gonna do a Wes March's thing, and we have like 20 players now, 20 actors gonna play. It's like, no, you're not. It's gonna it might look like one in the sense of, well, so and so's away this week. Well, that's just what you wrote in your script. That's why they're away this week. They're not, off adventuring. They're not doing something else. So yeah, I think the whole thing. My co-host Gary likes to try to defend them a little bit and say, well, I don't think it's that scripted. I'm like, no. After seeing this, I'm like, yeah, no, it's scripted. It's totally scripted. It's total corporate business decisions to try to sell this, brand, and that, like you correctly point out, is fading. And that's it.
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly more controlled as it goes along, because they're trying to keep it up, right, to prop it up. And yeah, Wes, like, if you're an OSR person, right, like somebody says, oh, Wes March's, right, you're like, oh, okay, well, welcome to 2012, dude. Like, what the hell are you talking?
Yeah.
And it is now. Somebody said on the chat that it's become a buzzword. OSR Dwarf said it. It is. It's just a buzzword, because almost all of these people outside of the OSR that are using that term are using it wrong. But there you have it. So yeah, it's just very, very funny watching these guys demonstrate their complete creative bankruptcy. On the other side, I saw this. It's really incredible. The other supposed D&D killer that has come out now is from Matt Colville. It's called Draw Steel. And incredibly, Draw Steel, if you want to get the book of the Draw Steel set of, it's actually, I guess, 2 books, and it'll cost you $135 US
for 2 books.
Yeah, $135. But that's not all. If you prefer, you could just get the PDF. Just the PDF. It'll cost you $70 for the PDF.
Oh my God.
A PDF for $70.
Oh,
like, what is
this
guy thinking? It's just insane. Daggerheart costs I guess about $60 US.
Yeah.
Where you get the book and the cards and all the other, tchotchkes that they've thrown in there to make it look more appealing, right? That said, I think Draw Steel is probably a little bit more playable, though it's insane that it's also based on 4th edition D&D, which was until 2024 the least successful version of D&D ever. But there you are. Well, and of course, Wizards of the Coast. If you buy the 2024 set, right, the 3 core books, that'll cost you $180 US.
Yeah.
So it's just nuts, right? And if you compare this, for example, if you're getting Shadow Dark, right? If you get the single book core book of Shadow Dark, it's $59 US.
Yeah.
If you want to get there are some games that are more legit games that are also kind of expensive, right? Castles and Crusades, if you want the 3 books, the DM screen, the adventure, and the PDF, it's $180. Acts 2 is about $200 if you want the 3 hardcover books, the DM screen, and the PDF. But meanwhile, you can pick up Baptism of Fire for $45.99. And it's a big book, and it's pretty complete. You can also pick up the 101 Sarmatians if you want it, but it's not absolutely essential, but it really does expand the setting quite a bit. So there you go. I think that some of these prices are kind of nuts, especially in an era where there are, economically, I think, even though obviously there's been some recovery from Biden, but from Bidenomics, but I think there's still, I've noticed at least that in this year, there has been slightly less. If it wasn't for the new books that are coming out that I made that are obviously generating a pretty good income for me, there has been in terms of the general sales, a slight drop even for me, right? So to be at that time, saying, well, if you want to actually play this game, you need to pay $180, right? That's pretty crazy.
Well, I've had this complaint for a few years now, actually, with crowdfunding and these crazy, with a few exceptions. I did go all out with Acts 2 because I like Alexander Matrix's work.
Yeah, sure.
And but some of them, I'm not going to name names, but I'm just kind of you want $79 and I'm getting all this goofy like you said, tchotchkes that have nothing to do with the game, but it just to justify charging me this much for a full color hard copy thing. And it's how good is your game? And when you really look at what they're doing, these are from a YouTuber. It's just a mishmash of everything that I already have on my shelves. I'm well, I can do this at home. I can do this at home. So when I hear, because I just caught wind of this with Draw Steel a couple hours ago when I got back from vacation, and I'm this guy is clearly trying, well, just like Critical Role. I mean, he's trying to get his fans to give him an influx of cash before he rides off into the sunset. When I heard Draw Steel was going to be based off of 40, I had the exact same reaction. I was why? No one liked that game,
So I got a $5 super chat from Michael McLaughlin. Thank you very much for that, Michael. He says, some coworkers wanted me to run a D&D game. I bought them copies of the Rule Cyclopedia at $25 a pop and told them it's all you need to play, which is true. Though, of course, you could also have gotten them Lion and Dragon, where the hardcover Lion and Dragon book is just $28.99. So it's pretty compelling. You could get the soft cover book for $21.99 actually. So not to say that Real Cyclopedia is in any way bad. It's probably my favorite of all time D&D, right? It's absolutely excellent. so I can't really criticize anyone for recommending it. Overkill Joe says, just buy Baptism of Fire. Damn right. The only thing I've heard, I mean, I don't know because I've never gotten it from drive-through, but apparently the official Rule Cyclopedia version that they've put out there, I've heard some people say that like the print quality isn't good, right? Like that it was like badly scanned or something. I'm not sure.
I have a copy, a reprint, and it's fine, but I don't know. My eyesight's getting a little bad, so maybe I don't know. It's definitely like old school layout. I'll just say that, you know. But
yeah. What else have we got here? Let's see if there's any other comments here. People were freaking out about me charging $20 for my module. I guess it depends how big your module is, Three Orcs.
Well, I
can
think
definitely some adventure books can easily be worth that much if it's, you know, if you're talking about an 80 or 90 page book like that. The printing costs have also gone up this year, which means that in some cases it's not about people aren't making a bigger profit. It's just that they have to cover the cost of printing, right? Quick inflation calculator shows that $15 D&D rulebook back in 1980 is the same as around $60 today. Yeah, I guess that is technically true, but it never feels that way.
yeah. Oh, I know. I try to with what I've been doing. I try to keep the cost low, you know, so people aren't like killing themselves to pick something up to add to their games, you know. Because this is an expensive hobby, and there's a lot of crap out there that you pay way too much money for.
And apparently the biggest recent crap was all of these attempts to do something to replace the OGL, you know, like almost none of those turned out to be actually good products.
Yeah.
So let's see what else I had on here. Oh yeah. So there's something that just came up very recently now, which is that apparently Wizards of the Coast is doing. I don't think it's a product. I think that they did as like something online or something, that they're doing some of the classes or something from Dark Sun, and this has led to a flurry of buzz and panic about whether Wizards is going to do like a Dark Sun book. Which is really strange because they had originally, like a few years ago, they said we will never do Dark Sun because, you know, slavery is bad, you know. Like,
yeah.
As if in Dark Sun slavery is presented in a positive light or something, which it isn't. I mean, the very first adventure for Dark Sun is about like fighting a bunch of a slaver society, you know. Like it's just ridiculous. But maybe they've changed their mind now. Who knows? I mean, I've seen no evidence that Wizards of the Coast is any less woke now than it was 6 months ago. So, on the contrary, you know, like the stuff what they posted, like recently they posted an homage to Taylor Swift, as if that's going to really get new people on board.
Yeah, I wondered about that because that again popped on my radar before I took off, and I'm like, Is this like one of those like trial balloons where they're going to see like, is the OSR going to like us again? You know, the old Grognar is going to like us if we do this, and it's just like, well, you've already like pretty much destroyed any trust, any of like the, because you know gamers, nerd culture, they're loyal to the brand almost to a fault, and they paid for your 4E game even when it sucked, and then some of them moved off, but then they came back to 5E, and then everything that we've seen in the past 5 years especially, has just been nothing but like an attack on like whatever everything that came before. Like I don't trust anything they do. Like I joke with my friends, I'm like, I play the lottery every now and again, because if I win big, I will move heaven and earth to purchase Dark Sun and free it from Wizards of the Coast, you know, just so we can have like a good Dark Sun game, you know, updated, you know. but because I don't trust them to be able to pull that off. And what we're likely to get is like what we got in 40, which was awful, like cartoony. Like what made Dark Sun, aside from the grittiness of it, was Brahms' art. Like it was just so otherworldly and like just awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't. If we're gonna get what we like, dancers on the table art, but in Dark Sun style, no, it's gonna be awful.
You have to say TSR, their products, that we tend to idealize all of the art out there, and of course there was a lot of bad art in TSR.
Oh sure,
but there was also a lot of incredible art that TSR made, right? And none of that has ever been equaled by Wizards of the Coast, not even like in the 3rd edition era, right? Like none. It has never lived up to that standard, right? Which is a bit of a pity. And I doubt it's going to get any better now, right? If anything, like the recent products have just been so much worse. It's unbelievable. Dying Breed Tabletop says, Watts is creatively bankrupt. They can only recycle and about all the less of the problematic stuff. Well, I'm sure some of you have heard, I did a short mentioning this, that they're like continuing to confirm what I'd already been saying on my YouTube for some time and predicting that their book sales are now just part of merchandising sales, because I mean, like now Dan Ayub, the new guy in charge of Wizards, has said we want it to be we want D&D to be a lifestyle brand, right? And so among the new books that they've put out is an adult coloring book of dragons. They're planning to do a second cookbook, because of course most of the people that work for them now in the game design department have no history in game designing at all, and come from things like young adult novels, which is all feminist stuff now, and vegan cookbook writing. And so like this is what they know, right? And now the latest one is that they're going to do a book about crochet patterns based on D&D, right? For like people who crochet, right? And I'm not going to say that there's nobody who crochets that also plays D&D. I'm sure there's a few people, but like this is not the way forward, dudes. Like,
yeah.
It's funny how like go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I heard some apologists were just saying like, well, it's just a licensed product, and they're just trying to like expand their fan base or whatever. But like to your point, it's a very small niche portion of the hobby that crochets and plays D&D, but more importantly, as a licensed product, they still can say no, and they didn't.
But the main issue is that there might be some people who already play D&D and crochet. I'll grant you that, right? But it's going to be a tiny number of people.
Yeah.
Nobody who crochets and doesn't play D&D is going to start playing D&D because there's a D&D crochet book, right?
Yes,
and we know this because in a much bigger scale, they've spent the last entire year. Like it directly told the art director of Wizards of the Coast, and she said so in an interview, right? That you shouldn't put any more white guys, right? Like there's too many of them, right? And there was an intentional movement to fill the D&D books with images of Black women, right? And up to like just the recent thing they did in homage of Taylor Swift's new album, which again, the number of Swifties who play D&D is probably very tiny.
Yeah.
Even there, like with the whatever Life of a Showgirl or whatever it's called, the art image they used was something from the Radiant Citadel, which was a Black woman again, right? Like, and there are now more Black women in D&D art pieces than there are Black women playing D&D in real life.
Yes.
None of this works, and it's funny to me. Oh, hang on, there's a super chat here. $5 from Michael McLaughlin. Thank you very much. Nothing better summarizes WotC's stewardship of D&D than them trying to clarify the Larry Eldmore Redbox character had always been a female.
Oh, that's just right.
Especially since Elmore said that's not true, right? Like Elmore's alive, right? Like there's just what are you people doing? Right?
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. But yeah, they're still on that policy, right? And it's really funny in this, like, we're now in a post-woke era, right? right? Like everything is changing around. All of that is looking absolutely ridiculous now. But there's like at the corporate level, there are some corporations that have figured this out and are now like desperately scrambling to try to turn things back.
Right.
With different degrees of success because of like how infiltrated that has become inside their corporate culture. And then there's others that are like, no, fuck you, we're just going to keep doing this, right? And they don't care how much money they lose, you know? And I think Wizards of the Coast is still very much doing that, you know? Like they do not care about making actual money from D&D, apparently. Sooner or later, that's going to bite them in the ass, right? Because Hasbro is going to at some point start to care, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I've always wondered too, from a business perspective, like, you know, obviously the gamers who grew up on the original game and played it and have been loyal, they're the ones with the disposable income now to spend a ton of money and have been spending a ton of money on the products. Like what is going on aside from, you know, presenting the message, you know, the woke message? I mean, do they honestly think they're laying the foundation for when these young woke people playing the game are going to be older? Like, I don't think they'll be playing the game when they're older. Like, I think this is just sort of a fad for them right now because they're young and whatever.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know I just don't understand the long-term business strategy, if there ever was one, you know?
Yeah.
But,
no, it's absolutely crazy because, yes, there were a bunch of fashionable millennials when 5e came out and when it became popular because of things like, you know, the Big Bang Theory and Stranger Things and all of that, right? That started playing it because it was the hip thing to do, because that's what millennials do. They latch on to whatever they think is popular, right? But the second it's not popular anymore, they're not going to give a crap about it, right?
yeah.
So the people that are going to stay are people that don't think that way, right? Whether they're millennials or otherwise, right? And those people are not going to keep following that kind of woke trend, right? Wizards has got to accept the fact that at least right now, D&D is no longer the hot commodity, right? Like, there's still one more season of Stranger Things, but it isn't doing as well as it did before either, right? So it's already gone, right? Yeah. He Who Wants to Know says, woke gamers are tourists. Most of them have already left. Yeah, absolutely. And most of them only performatively played, right? That's why in studies that were made by Wizards itself, the average 5e D&D campaign lasted 6 sessions. You know, and that means that half of all D&D campaigns lasted less than 6 sessions. You know,
Right?
Which is crazy, right? For me, 6 sessions means you haven't even started yet. You know, like it's
right.
Crazy. But yeah, that is more or less the state of Wizards of the Coast right now. It's interesting watching some of these other mediums, right? Because like John Delarose has been pointing out a lot about like the current the current Star Trek series, the one that has Captain Pike in it. I forget what it's called. Strange New World, I think it's called, right?
Yep.
And
I watched the first season.
The first 2 seasons of it were full of woke crap, right? And in this third one, there's suddenly a shift, right? Like they're clearly trying to realign the boat there, right? To make it much less woke, right? But there's still according to him, every episode still has this mixed bag, right? Where there's like good stuff that's happening, right? Like at one point, you know, Captain Pike comes out as an open Christian. Like he actually starts to pray the Lord's Prayer in an episode there, right? So that's that is the ultimate based shout out, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah.
But then like at the same time, there's like still nonsense happening, right? Still this ridiculous shit that goes on, and people are like, you know, why are you doing this still, right? Like so there's still like obviously an internal conflict inside Paramount, but at least they're trying, right? Whereas like like Disney is completely lost, you know, like
right.
They recently said that they recognize that they have lost the boys' audience, like which is incredible because they had specifically bought Marvel and bought Star Wars to be able to have as much influence in the in the young male market as they always had in the young female market because of Disney princess movies and shit like that, right?
Right.
And they just ruined it, right? Like they ruined it by feminizing both of those.
Exactly. Well, yeah, they've spent the past decade or so basically villainizing traditional masculinity, and so you wonder why, you know, at least in the West, right, America, boys are checking out. You know, they're checking out a lot on a lot of it's almost to me it's a crisis. Like we have an issue. So it's nice to see that the political cultural tone is finally shifting, such that like my son will have something to look up to and look forward to, you know.
We hope so, yeah. But the real problem here is that the executives want to make money, right? And so they realize that they have to change things. But at this point, what, 95% of the employees are woke DEI type hires, right? Like they're people that are everybody in a position of authority there, and everybody in a secondary position of authority there are completely devoted to that ideology. So you can't just tell them, okay, now do a based show, because they wouldn't even have the slightest idea how to do that, right? Like that. And that's evident in this Star Trek show, right? Like that they're kind of trying, right? But it's not really working because they don't have the right people to make it, right? So I think that at some point, all of these corporations are going to have to like do some kind of a massive purge of their employees if they're going to actually be able to go back and change that, you know.
I also think that right now is an interesting time for people who are more conservative or right-leaning, or dare I say normal, to make a go of it, you know, and see if they can punch through. Because I mean, people are obviously turning away from Disney. They're obviously turning away from a lot of these IPs. I was just telling my friends on this trip that we were on, I'm like, Star Wars is dead. Star Wars, we're never going to be able to fix that. It's dead. It's gone. But could there be something else like that's like it? Not necessarily a ripoff, but some new thing that harkens back to traditional, you know, masculine role models like that at a more rational sort of worldview. Could there be something that pops up? And I think the audience, whether it's film, literature, games, I think are hungry for it. It'd be nice to see someone to actually step up. In fact, I would go so far as Angel Studios. You know, I know not everyone's into Christian stuff, Christian movies, but Angel Studios has been doing some really interesting things.
Is Angel Studios the ones that have done The Chosen?
I think so, yeah.
So like The Chosen is an incredible series, right? Like it is so careful about its historical accuracy. I'm super impressed with it.
I try to tell some of my non-Christian friends, I'm like, look, I'm not trying to be preachy. Like, I think you would still enjoy this because it's just so good.
I think almost anyone could watch it as like a historical drama.
Yes,
whether or not you are a Christian, they're going to find it really engaging, right? Because it is not like for decades, Christian TV was frankly horrible. Right?
Oh yeah,
it was just like it was preaching to the choir in a way that nobody who wasn't usually devout, you know, Protestant American Christian would be able to appreciate. Right? Only they could potentially appreciate, and most of the times they're kind of probably appreciating out of a sense of duty, right? Like, oh yeah, it's Christian, watch it, right? But like shows like this, like Chosen, is a completely different thing because they look at it first as a drama, but they stick close to the historical and literary sources in a way that's just remarkable. There's another one that I don't know if Angel Studios did this one that came out that was I forget the name of it, but it was very similar, but it was the story of King David, right?
I haven't seen that, but
was a spectacular series. It was just incredible, you know. And it's those are both very, very good shows to watch, right? But I think besides that, there are like some other recent shows that have started to come out, and I mean even from like mainstream companies. that that are now at least not woke, right? Like they're not necessarily giving a strong conservative message or something like that, but they are they've just stopped the wokeness, right? And just that by itself is going to be a change. And in a way, it's a lot easier to do that with a new franchise than to try to change back from an old franchise, right? So it's you're right that I think some new shows or new movies might come out that might turn into like series of movies or whatever, right? That are going to be able to do this easier. I mean, that's the problem Disney has. They spent billions of dollars to get Marvel and Star Wars, and basically what they're saying now, like they're trying to find something else that will work for boys to watch, because they acknowledge that they so destroyed Star Wars and Marvel that it would be harder to change those back to something normal than to just try to find some other franchise.
I don't even know. I don't even know how you'd be able to go back to Star Wars and fix it, because I mean, in a lot of the ship has sailed. People, the original actors are dying off. Like, I mean, it's gone. You know what I mean? It's
well, the only thing you could do is like do some kind of a hard reboot, right? Where you say like, okay, you know, all this stuff, everything we did in the entire Disney era, forget it, right?
That was all bullshit. Right? Yep.
Let's do something else. Okay, here's you know, the Thrawn trilogy, but for none of the other stuff happened, right? Get some new guy that looks a bit like Mark Hamill when he was 19 to be, or when he was in his 20s or whatever, to be, you know, Luke Skywalker Jedi Master, right? Which is what people would really like, you know.
Yeah.
That's possible, but it's still House of David was the name of the.
Yes, I have seen that pop up. I haven't watched it, but I will put it on my to watch list.
Yeah, yes. I mean, if you like The Chosen, you'll like House of David, right? I mean, obviously, it's I guess you could say it's more Jewish than Christian, but I mean, it applies both ways, right? Because it's the same story to both peoples, right? So yeah, I mean, they've got a bit of a dilemma, because what other franchises, like big franchises, can Disney get, right? Like I think I watched the new Superman movie, and I you know, James Gunn, it's not ideal, but again, there's nothing tremendously woke about that. About that movie, right? And he does still manage, like, it's not, Superman is never talking about the American way or something like that, but he is, you know, he still has the virtues of Superman, right? They didn't turn him into a simp or something like that, you know?
Right.
So that's, ironically, DC might have an easier time with it, because they never managed to put together an expanded DC universe series where they filled it with crap, right? So if you use something like that as a launching point, but that's not Disney, right? I don't remember who owns DC, but is it Paramount? I don't know, but in any case, they're going to have a leg up on Disney for that.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course, Doctor Who, which is my favorite sci-fi series, was completely destroyed for years now, and it's just to the point that I don't think it's going to be able to be saved, especially because the BBC is still in control of it, and it will be the last bastion of wokeness, you know. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to revive it. The next Doctor will be like a disabled black lesbian or something.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Like there's just going to have to be something brand spanking new to come out on the scene. And frankly, I think Disney and some of these other major corporations, you know, these major IPs have just done so much damage to the brand. No one's going to trust them when they do try. And again, I go back, now's the time for some innovative, someone in their apartment writing, you know, their, you know, great American novel. Now's the time for you to like do something, you know?
Yeah, except you'll have to self-publish it, because the entire American industry is controlled by extreme feminists. But yes, that's true. I mean, and these days you can self-publish, right? I mean, In fact, small print publishing is going to make you more money unless you end up making like an incredible bestseller, but first you'd have to get published to do that. And chances are, if you're like, what was it? New York Times, I think, reported on this, that like not a single New York Times bestseller novel of the last 10 years was written by a white male, right? Like, because they won't publish a novel by a white male, right? So it's pretty wild. But if you publish your own stuff, you can make if you're good, you can make a good living from it, apparently. Just like with RPGs. So let's bring it back to gaming for a second here. Aside from your own stuff, and we already know the Red Room and obviously Lamentations and apparently Shadow Dark. What are your favorite? What are your RPG influences? What are your favorite old school games, and what are your favorite newer like OSR products? And what do you how often do you run games? Are you still actually playing, or are you just writing stuff?
Oh, no, I'm still running games. In fact, my Discord server, I've been transitioning into a bit more of a public server over the past year, and encouraging people to run games. So my in-person gaming crew, we've been running Gods of the Forbidden North. We started.
Good. Gods of the Forbidden North is.
Yeah. Well, I met Rob. I've known Rob for a couple years now. I actually got to meet him at North Texas Con this year, like face to face. You know what I mean? He's just a great guy, really talented writer. And so we've been running that for I want to say 4 or 5 months now. We play once a month. It's just our busy lives, that kind of thing. But anyway, but that's like my main game, and I really like it. And I wanted to let you know what. Because I know you have some familiarity with it. Rob's got these 3 cultures, right? The Haitian, which is kind of Roman, right? The Wujan, which are like these, foreigners, and then the natives. Well, I'm a big fan of kitbashing when I run games, and I have your book, Old School Companion 3, and I'm using the rule cyclopedia. I've allowed my players to use the alternative magic skill to get access to the alternative magics in your book, and I tied it to the culture. So like it's given like this like really cool 3-dimensionality to what's going on. So and one of my buddies loves the dream magic, like, so he's been like using it a lot. So but that's the game I'm currently running. I'm going to be running for my channel Key Long by Kenneth Haidt, but I'm going to be using the Red Room's system, Wretched, so I can get more of like a fantasy Vietnam, like you're in the Southeast Asian jungle with mutants and M16s. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, like again, I told you before you started the stream, like I've been following you for a long time. So like you are one of my influences. I love Venger Satanis. I think he's, again, someone who's presenting something interesting and different, that's what I like, because I've played standard fantasy D&D for a very long time, since 1988. And so the past 10 years, I've been looking for just something that's just different, just not necessarily strange and weird and horrific like Lamentations, though I really do like that. Just something that just makes me think about these rule systems, the game itself in a different way. So, but yeah, that's what I'm currently running. I might be running a Marvel Supers game eventually as well, because I'm on a face rip kick right now. I just like the system.
So Matthew Sedens asks, "What's kitbashing?" Do you want to explain what you mean by kitbashing?
Sure. So here's the thing I like the most about the OSR is the plug and play nature of it. Absolutely. If you pick up like we were just talking about the rule cyclopedia, my latest blog post is how much some of the skills in the skill system in there I think needs some work, and so I'd like change some things around, right? And there's this one particular skill called alternative magics, and it just rules is written, it just means your character knows stuff about alternative magics. Well, that raises a question: what other alternative magics out there? Well, I picked up the Pundit's book there, Old School Companion 3, and there's a bunch of alternative magic systems, and that's when I decided to insert that into the game. With Keylong, this is written with Lamentations of the Flame Princess in mind, but instead of using that system, because this is OSR and the Red Room's Wretched RPG is basically OSR, I'm just going to use those two together. When I was running my Lamentations of Elemental Evil campaign, that was a classic mega dungeon from the first edition days, Temple of Elemental Evil, using Lamentations of the Flame Princess, but then I inserted some stuff from Adventure Conqueror King. I think something from your first companion. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but like I just take rules and ideas from all these other things and I just mash them together, because for me, the rule system that you're using is the physics engine for your campaign world, right? So what those rules represent is how the your players are going to experience what your characters are experiencing. And to me, that's where the rubber meets the road for like things like immersion and stuff. So you, the game master, have all this power to like really craft what kind of experience you want your players. Like rules is written, like a raw game is totally valid, but that's going to be a very different experience from something where you're like inserting different ideas and whatnot. And I think that's the thing I really like the most about the OSR. That's what I like the most about being a game master, being able to kind of craft the world the way I want it and then present it to my players on a plate. Be like, you ready to play in this sandbox? You know, question mark, you know? So that's what I mean by kitbashing.
That is totally how I run all of my OSR games, right? Like that is the killer app of the OSR, is that any OSR book that is a real OSR book is going to be compatible with any other OSR book with very minimal adjustment necessary, right? So it's extremely useful for being able to, like, because normally if you buy two different RPGs, I don't know, you get, let's say, Pendragon and I don't know, Star Wars D6, right? There's not much you can do with those two without doing a considerable amount of conversion at the very least, right?
Yeah.
So with OSR though, you can get any product from the OSR and any other product, and you can practically just plug it right in and make it work, right? So that's one of the big keys to the success of the OSR.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about this question, not this specific question, but just this topic. You know, Free League's game engine, I think, is interesting, and I do like running their games. And I think it's interesting because with just minor tweaks, they're able to like emulate certain genres. But here's the difference between the OSR. They're not compatible with each other. Like you can't take Alien RPG and mix it with Vossen. You really can't. And I think that's actually a flaw with the Year Zero game engine. As interesting as I find it, it's just not as, it just can't do what the OSR can do. So
and that explains why OSR has been such a huge success and continues to grow. Like in the last 5 years, it's been growing steadily, and it's because that utility makes it, you know, so functional, right? And beyond even the OSR itself, it's obviously backwards compatible with all of the TSR era, right? Because you can take some second edition or first edition or basic expert or whatever, and that's very easy to put in. But it's also still relatively quite easy to put in stuff from third edition or fifth edition into the game as well, you know. So it's multi-use. All right, so if anybody in the chat has questions for Lord Matteus, you might want to start thinking of posting them now, because I am running out of my own questions here right now. Any moment now, I'm going to have to ask Lord Matteus' opinion on Israel, because there's not much else I've got on the list here of what I was going to talk about. So feel free to ask, guys, if you've got some kind of a question for him. something you want to know about his products or about any other topic, or if you've got a general topic that you would like both of us to talk about. I think we're probably pretty close to winding down here the interview, but if you have something interesting to posit, feel free to do so. Once again, if you look at the description of this live stream, you're going to find links there to Matteus's his YouTube, his blog, and a link to Wretched Folklore, which will also take you to the Red Room store. So there you are. Somebody has posted here. Matthew says, "Why do they refuse to do things that make D&D good in the new D&D edition?" Do you want to take that one?
I think that's a combination of just modern game design sensibilities mixed with people who've just never played old school D&D, like they haven't even tried it. Because like there's a guy in my gaming group who
they haven't played new school D&D. They haven't played any D&D at this point.
Yeah. But like, you know, he got into the game during 3rd edition. So like when I start talking OSR, he like rolls his eyes. You know, he's like, "Oh God, you mean I have to roll 3d6 down the line?" Like, you know, all this other stuff. But he's in my Gods of the Forbidden North game. And just this weekend, he's like, "Look, I've been having a lot of fun. As much as I've been bitching about certain things, death at 0, blah, 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 I've been having a lot of fun." So I just think there's just some, there's some like institutional wisdom and knowledge that's just not been passed down, because Wizards of the Coast and their message that they've been pushing is all the old guys were terrible people and they don't want to listen to what they have to say. And I think that's why they refuse to do it. They refuse to look at what came before and try to learn from it.
Well, I would say that you're right about all of that, but I would also add that it's not just that they don't want to do these things, but that they are guided, or have been for the last many years, basically since at least since Mike Merles was removed. They've been guided by an ideology saying that Dungeons and Dragons, as it is normally played, is basically a bad thing, right? And not just old school, but new school, right? Because the whole idea of this kind of like heroic adventuring goes contrary to the kind of collectivist notions of the woke mentality, right? So they like several of the later 5th edition books are intentionally subverting that concept, right? Like in Wild Beyond the Witchlight, you're besides having Thaco the Clown in it, it also has this principle that says that if you act like a normal D&D party and start, trying to fight your way through a situation, it'll actually make things worse for you, right? It's meant to take what would be the normal behavior in a D&D party and punish it, and you get other versions of that sort of thing in other things as well, especially like Radiant Citadel, which is, like I've often described it as eat, pray, love for D&D, like you're mostly meant to be a tourist. Daryl Echret says, Lord Matteus, have you ever run a biblical themed game?
No. Never really. Well, that's not entirely true. I wouldn't say I never thought about doing it. I just haven't. I the closest I've come is in like my homebrew world that I use as sort of like the default. It's kind of like a dark fantasy setting, but I do have the what I call the Arn people. They are kind of like they're inspired by Judaism, but with like a mishmash of Catholicism, because that's me. I'm a Catholic. So instead of a pope, though, they have the Sanhedrin. These scholars that try to understand what God is telling their people, and it started with me thinking I don't want to have a pantheon of gods. I just want one, and that got me thinking logically, what would that mean? well, there would be these other powers that are constantly besetting. So the Iron people are very, and their nation is very much like Israel. They're beset by people who just don't like them, and they're trying to survive. But they have the one true God that's like going out and doing things. That's the closest I've come to that. I'm not I'm a free speech absolutist kind of person. But I temper that with the wisdom of, I want to have a gaming table where people feel comfortable, and I wouldn't want to get into certain, religious, get too preachy, even inadvertently, you know what I mean? Because I've had a very diverse group of people at my gaming table, everything from atheists to Jews to Christians, obviously. A good friend of mine, he passed away a few months back. He was a homosexual, and even he and I, we disagree on each other's lifestyles, but we were able to set that aside and game together. You know what I mean? And that's very important to me. So the go full on biblical, no, but I've kind of come close, I guess. I hope that answers the question.
I've never run a biblical game as such either, but obviously Baptism of Fire is an explicitly Christian setting, you could say, right? Like it's the Christianization of Poland, and in that campaign, the characters, the players don't have to be, obviously, but the characters in my original Baptism of Fire campaign are explicitly part of the Christian early medieval Polish culture. And there's, there are adventures. One of the published adventures in the Pundit Files, trying to find which number it is here. Pundit Files issue 27, The Bones of St. Florian. That's an adventure based on an adventure that I did in the actual Baptism of Fire campaign that involves a holy quest to recover the relics of a lost saint, who was a real saint, by the way. So there you go. And so that it has very strong Christian themes. And I find that, because it's not, I'm not doing it in a way that's proselytizing, right? But I'm saying, look, this is what your player characters would believe, right?
Right.
They're obviously not every character in Baptism of Fire has to actually be devout or really good, right? But this is the world they come from. The players can get really into it, right? I'm pretty sure, Uruguay is an unusual Latin American country because it has only the majority of Uruguayans are essentially non-practicing in their religion. Most of them are technically Catholics, but church attendance is not equivalent to other parts of South America. They're equivalent to places like France or Quebec or many of the European countries where maybe 15% of the population go to church, right? So it's not a very religious country, but the players can go all in on it, right? And in the game with their characters, right? And they've quite enjoyed that. So that's as close as I've gotten to, I guess. Lord Matteus, Judd Goswick asks, what movie needs an RPG module based on it? That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. So getting inspiration from various places, right? That both the Red Room does and Raji does. There's been a couple where where I look at the movie and then I think to myself, how do you game that? And so the only thing that's really coming to mind is how would you be able to pull off the Event Horizon? Has everyone seen that classic sci-fi horror movie where really crazy stuff happens? How can you pull off that kind of psychological supernatural horror where players are, their characters are experiencing something, but then the players themselves are going to be experiencing something? How do you pull that off? And I think that one of the reasons why I like horror and fear gaming so much is I think that's a huge challenge. Obviously, you don't want your players to be sitting at the table freaking out because you pull out a handgun or something to scare them. But you want them to feel a little bit of anxiety because their character's obviously experiencing something. So, yeah, Event Horizon. I'd love to see someone try to pull that off, and if they could get someone to feel like kind of actually legit, kind of feel like they're losing their mind without having to track. All due respect to Sandy Peterson, keeping track of sanity points, which I sort of feels like breaks immersion a little bit. Yeah, that would be great. Alien RPG, Free League, their panic mechanic I think is great. I've had players like at the table really feeling some anxiety because they have so many panic dice they're rolling. But yeah, I would say Event Horizon. I'd love to see a module that's able to pull that off. That would be great. And maybe someday I'll do it once I crack the code.
All right. Modern Warrior asks, don't a lot of OSR games basically use 3E as their basis? I don't think that's quite right. The one that does technically, but is it's arguable that I think that they are OSR by adoption is Castles and Crusades, right? Castles and Crusades is very explicitly 3rd edition based, but I understand the question where that comes from, because obviously a lot of OSR games do use, for example, ascending armor class rather than descending armor class. All of my games do, for example. And they have things like a base attack bonus, instead of THACO or whatever. So there are some mechanics that 3E put together, usually the ones that were meant to kind of like simplify some of these concepts, that have been widely adopted by the OSR. Right? But what they don't use are a lot of the things that would not actually be functional in an old school context, like the skill points mechanic that there is to like have a list of 40 skills, and you have to put in, and if you've got like a +10 in diplomacy, you can just like use that to make someone do what you want, and like any of that social role playing stuff, that social mechanics are right out, and obviously feats, right, because those are terrible. So I don't think it's quite that, but it is true that there are some things from 3rd edition, because they, in some ways, they were more functional to some regard, that have been widely adopted. Yeah. Radiant Citadel is more like Sigil for commies, it says Mogvor. Well, I actually said that in one of my reviews of Radiant Citadel. Judd Goswick points out that it's apart from those particular details, most OSR products are actually based on BX, right? There are a few that are based on AD&D, but BX is the most common rule set that is used by default in the OSR. Eric Altman asks, how do you guys handle psionics in your more simulationist type games based more in the real worlds as compared to traditional magics?
Well,
do you have anything to say about that one?
I actually do. Okay, so in my book that I will take a few minutes to continue to shill, so I decided to make the spiritualist class more like a psionic class. But when you look at how the abilities work, when you do a psionic manifestation, it's based on like a sort of an ascending target number system, right? And the Wretched use like a kind of Wretched RPG is a good way to describe it. Is it's a skill-based game masquerading as a class-based game. So as you gain levels, you get some skill points, and then you can like increase your skill. So you start increasing your spiritualism knowledge, and that is a bonus that adds to a D20. Well, rather than hitting a particular target number that is declared first, you just roll, and then you take a look at what you actually rolled compared to the various target numbers. So it's kind of like a sliding scale to kind of simulate, I guess, like the young psionics mind, like not quite able to do like the really powerful stuff, but as they gain in levels, they have a greater chance of doing something really tough. So it's not going to be a binary pass fail. Something's going to happen. It's just a matter of like how tough and skilled you are. That will determine how powerful the manifestation. I think of the movie Firestarter, that old movie. I can't remember who was. She was like a little girl in it. I cannot remember the actress's name, but it was based off of the Stephen King book Firestarter. She's like she's just like she's like a psychic, and she's like causes fires. And as
it was the girl from E.T., wasn't it? What's her name?
Yes, yeah. God, it's it'll come to me later tonight when I'm trying to sleep, more likely. But
two old men who don't remember the
yeah, but yeah, something like that, where like just the circumstances are right, and then you just roll like this really great roll, and you're able to manage. There it is, Drew Barrymore. Thank you, Judd. But yeah, then you'll be able to like cast like this, or you'll manifest this very powerful psychic ability. I think that's how I handle yeah.
Well, and in terms of, for me, most of my games are historical games, right? I do have psionics in Star Adventurer, but it's essentially like Jedi stuff, right? So it's basically magic. In Invisible College, there isn't really psionics because, again, it's magic, and like what people call psionics today, like that's the concept of psychic power is something that is invented more or less in the 19th century. It was part of what I was just talking about when we were talking about the spiritualist. It was this attempt to like create a scientific theory for certain things that were previously thought of as supernatural. It's a very modernist concept. But all of the things that psionics are supposed to be able to do, telekinesis, telepathy, bilocation, distant remote viewing, are all things that if you like look at the manuals of what Tibetan monks were doing, or what Sufis were said, what were said to be the miracles that Sufi saints could do, which you can find, by the way, in Sword and Caravan. Oops, just dropped the pipe there. So you'll see that all of those powers are there, but those are what? They're miraculous powers or magical powers, right? Because no one had this idea that it was something separate from that, right? Same thing with like in mental yoga techniques of India, right? Like all of these are actually just ancient meditation or magical talents that were believed to be real by ancient cultures. And the question of psionics is just a modernist attempt to rationalize the possibility of those things being real. So I think in general I tend to treat them as that, right? Except in World of the Last Sun, like Gonzo campaign, where mutants can sometimes have psionic powers, right? And those psionic powers are usually really wacky. And you basically either have them or you don't when you roll up the character, and they're like a power that they'll drain temporary attribute points, and then you can do something stupid. Once in a while, depending on how you roll, right? You might be like a really powerful psionic beat, but it's very rare, right? Usually it's something kind of lame. But that's the only place where I've used psionics in any way different from my mechanics for magic and miracles in my medieval authentic stuff. See if there's anything else here. What's this? Crossover through folklore lines, between the two sounds more realistic. Yeah, well, it looks like, I don't know if there's anybody else who has any other questions. Otherwise, we're now at the almost 2 hours and 15 minutes mark, so we're probably getting close to the end here. Though we still have a very full house. We got 43 people on right now. And so again, if you have any other questions for either Lord Matteus or myself, please let me know. Just as a programming note, I'll mention that in all likelihood, the next episode of RPG Pundit encounter will be on the 21st of September. So keep that on your calendars. I'm not sure what this question means, but maybe you know. When's the next second watch?
The next second watch will be this Friday, 11 p.m. We took a break because I was on vacation, so we didn't have one Friday. But Gary and I are back this Friday, 11 p.m., and we have Better with Bacon on. We're going to be talking about, broadly speaking, is it possible to over-intellectualize the hobby? Better with Bacon's YouTube channel. It likes to get into the esoterica of gaming and whatnot. We're gonna chat with him. Who knows? For those who don't know, Gary and I don't always agree, and we don't always agree with our guests, and so sometimes we have good-natured debates and conversation. But our main focus is to disagree without being disagreeable. Though I've been told we're hilarious when Gary and I drink too much and start yelling at each other. So.
Well, if you've ever read the GNS essays on the Forge, you know that it is absolutely possible to over-intellectualize the hobby. You end up creating useless things. Lord Matteus, any systems, games, or adventures you are looking forward to coming out?
Well, actually, honestly, the latest release from Lamentations is something I think the box just came in. Like, I haven't opened it yet. I'll probably do an unboxing video tomorrow. Zach S is back with Lamentations, and the Nebulith looks absolutely fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to sinking my teeth into that. And then, but yeah, I guess that'd be the main one. I'm also curious about what Professor Dungeon Master is going to be doing with Deathbringer and Shadow Dark, but that's down the line. The one I've been really chomping at the bit at is the latest Lamentations release, specifically Nebulith.
Do you have any interest in designing an actual game to publish?
Well, at this point, no, but only because I feel that I need to learn to walk before I run. So right now, I find it really challenging, in a good way, to take a look at a system that has piqued my interest and trying to write for that system and sort of like almost adopt it as my own and kind of get into the shoes of that person or that group of people who wrote it. So like when I write for Chult, I try to think like Venture Satanis, right? The only reason why I haven't even tried to write anything for like anything medieval authentic is like, I just don't know if I could pull it off, at this point. But that's kind of what I'm doing right now. So, but that's not to say I might change my mind in the future. But right now, designing my own thing, I don't think is necessary. I'm really enjoying the OSR and writing OSR products.
Well, one of the things that, first of all, that's a very prudent position that you're taking. It's good, but if someone is going to design a game at this point in the OSR, it needs to be something that you can look at and say, well, this does something that none of the other core OSR books do, right? Or it does something in a way different from how the other core books do it, right? Because otherwise, you're just making another kind of clone, right? And it's
right.
There are a lot of core books available for OSR now, right? And so you want to make sure that if you're going to make a full-blown game, it had better create an experience of play that is not going to be replicated by something that already exists.
Yeah, and I actually made a video about this a year or so ago. I said no more fantasy heartbreakers. The OSR is awash with them. There's some like really great creative people out there who want that brass ring, right? They want to be able to say, I designed a game. It's like, but in the OSR, what you end up doing is really just kind of publishing your own house rules. And you could do that on a blog. You know what I mean? And I think you'd be better spent using your creative energy in a different direction and like writing some cool supplement for an existing game, like, whatever. So
or a campaign setting, an adventure, whatever. But, yeah, I don't think there's a large market for generic standard fantasy RPG OSR products anymore, because you know, you've got to have a twist, right? Like Shadow Dark has its own twist, Axe has its own twist.
Yes. Yep.
Venger is just twists, you know.
Yeah.
No one really knows what he's doing, but there you go. He has apparently invited me to be the guest of honor at the Venger Con 1.5 or something like that he's planning to do, the virtual Venger Con.
Yes. Oh, you know, I'll tell you, I've been going to VengerCon since its inception. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it would be great to see you. It'd be great to see you virtually, you know, at the con.
He's making me the guest of honor because this is the only way he doesn't have to pay like $5,000 to get me.
Right.
Yeah, but it's still nice. So, well, I think that's happening in January. So I guess we'll see how that goes. All right. So I guess that's almost everything. So there is one final question to ask here, which I've asked all of the guests on my show. The reigning champion continues to be Driving in Dragons, who was here earlier. I don't know if he's still around or not. But as you know, or perhaps you don't know, but if you've been watching this show, you know, I am a bit unusual as far as an RPG guy is concerned, in that I hardly do any other explicitly nerdy thing, right? I don't play Magic the Gathering or card games. I don't collect comics. I mean, I did when I was a kid, but not now. I don't buy, you know, fantasy novels or any novels for that matter. I don't play video games. I don't read or watch anime or mangas or whatever. I'm not into any of those kind of things. But I play RPGs. You know, I don't play weird European board games. I don't collect Funko Pops. None of that stuff. And so my question is to see if there's people who are as non-nerdy a gamer as I am in that context. Right? I mean, I do a lot of other weird things, obviously, but I don't do any other nerdy things. So how about you? How nerdy are you?
How nerdy am I? Oh man. Well, RPGs has been, I guess, is the nerdiest thing I do, because I'm not into anime. I mean, there's a couple shows back like Cowboy Bebop, but to me that's not anime. That's just smart television. So I'm not into that. I don't Funko Pops. I do kind of get into IP, like television shows that are kind of sci-fi or fantasy. I haven't played a video game in a long time, mainly because nothing's really jumped out at me.
Which ones you're talking about, right? Because sci-fi or fantasy shows. Okay, if you mean that you went to watch the Avengers Endgame, right? That doesn't count, right?
Okay,
because
it's like some obscure. Yeah,
but if you're talking about like, I don't know, Firefly or something like that, if you're like a Firefly fanatic or something, so that's old.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call myself a Firefly fanatic, but I do like the show. Yeah, I think, I haven't played a video game in a long time, though I'm thinking about getting into this one called War Tales, because it's very OSR-like. A lot of resource management, and you even have to track morale. It's kind of got me curious on how that plays. Yeah, I think that's really, I mean, I like to cook. Is that nerdy?
No, not really.
I don't think so. Yeah.
It's a bit of a hipster hobby, but
yeah, maybe that's my dirty secret.
Okay, so no comic books.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, the occasional. I think I have a graphic novel that was given to me as a gift because it featured Dr. Doom, and I like Dr. Doom from back in the day.
If it was given to you as a gift, it probably doesn't count unless you've bought others into them. Right? So, all right. So it sounds as though you're relatively not very nerdy. Now, that's still that means that you're probably closer to the top than almost anyone has been since Driving and Dragons. So Driving and Dragons is ready to do is like this is where he defends his title right? Down to anti-nerd hobbies, because it's Driving and Dragons, besides not doing any nerdy thing other than D&D, he also fixes cars, right?
Yes,
which is one of the least nerdy things you could do, right? It's like, so do you have an anti-nerdy hobby? I mean, do you hunt? Do you...
No, I don't do any hunting. Anti-nerdy hobby. Yeah, I don't know. Like, honestly, like I'm, this is why I'm sort of feeling like I actually probably should be considered pretty nerdy, because I read RPGs for fun, just sort of like entertaining myself. Oh yeah, like, yeah, I don't really do any hunting or anything like that. I don't like landscaping. I don't like carpentry. I will, yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. I don't really have anything other than cooking and hanging out, watching my son play his video games and listening to him talk about all of the exciting things he's doing in Minecraft. That's pretty much what I do.
So it looks to me like it is very close to a tie, but
I do like bourbon. I just saw Driving and Dragons. I think you and I need to drink bourbon someday together.
There you go, guys. That's good. Cigars are nice, but pipes are more sophisticated. Okay, so it looks like you are now like second place, which is very a pretty good accomplishment. You're just barely behind Driving and Dragons on the but we had to like dip into the anti-nerd hobbies to confirm it. Another super chat here, $5 from Mog of War. He says, I know you truly hate anime, but I think you should really look at Prayer and Beyond's Journey's End and maybe Full Metal Alchemist. Look, I've had people try to recommend me animes before, and I've watched some of them, and some of them I'm like, what the hell? I couldn't even comprehend them. And then other ones I'm like, yeah, this is weird Japanese shit. You know, like
yeah.
But I appreciate the thought, Mog of War, and I thank you for the super chat. I guess that's just about it on that final note of promise of eventually going to have some bourbon with Driving and Dragons. Thank you very much for having come onto the show, and everybody, again, check out Lord Matteus's YouTube channel. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed there yet, and check out his products, especially at the Red Room store. And while you're there, check out the Pundit Files. There are currently 36 issues of the Pundit Files available for your perusal, and 37 is due to come out this week, which will be Monsters of the Distant East. I present some new and obviously historically authentic, or mythically authentic, I guess you'd say, Chinese monsters that are, the Chinese have some very weird monsters that you can use in a certain caravan campaign or any kind of campaign that has a mysterious East. I think you'll probably find that interesting. That'll be probably coming out on Tuesday or Wednesday, I hope, if Mad Hermit gets his act together. And another $5 super chat here from No One of Consequence. Get something for Domino. I will do that. Thank you very much, No One of Confidence. Though lately she's been like eschewing her cat toys, because now Domino is, she's been spayed, she's been chipped. So now she can go outside into the courtyard as much as she likes every day. Like when the sun comes out, she's at the door demanding to be let out, and she goes out there and plays for hours. And she likes to hunt. But as of right now, most of what she ends up hunting are leaves, which she then proudly brings into the house like she would any other prey, to show me what she's captured, right? So she's been doing a lot of playing with leaves and twigs and things that she brings into the house. But I will be getting something for her. Every time we take her to the vet, I get her some toy of some kind. So thank you very much for that. And well, the next episode, like I said, is going to be on probably the 21st of September. Make a note of that in your calendars. I don't know who we're going to have just yet, but I'm sure it's going to be as interesting as all of these episodes have been so far. And thank you to all of you for watching, and especially thank you to you, Lord Matteus, for coming on board. And I hope you've enjoyed it.
No, it's been fun. Thank you so very much. I hope to, for those of you who just got to know me, I hope to see you at the second watch this Friday, 11 p.m. It's always a good time. It's a little late, but it's a good time.
There you go. Check it out, guys. All right. Currently smoking Italian Red Bark plus Argento Latakia. See you later, guys.